Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday afternoon of a long weekend for those of you who have a long weekend like we do here at Hi Mama. Thank you so much to everybody who is joining us today. Happy Thursday, everybody. As always, I'm just going to give everyone a minute or two to settle in. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, find a nice quiet space if there's one you can find. I know that's probably harder to find in a childcare center if that's where you are right now. And we will get started as always at 2 o'clock on the dot. So take these next 2 minutes to settle in, close your doors. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. I hope you are having as sunny of a Thursday as we are finally having here in Toronto. A great Thursday afternoon to kick us off into a long weekend here. If you have a long weekend as well, I hope you have some exciting plans ahead of you or no plans at all so you can have all that relaxing that you all deserve. Welcome, everybody. The number is ticking up still, so I just want to let everybody trickle in. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today. Just going to give everyone another minute or so to settle in. We have a very exciting webinar for you today. We have an amazing guest speaker who is going to be discussing strategies to discuss gender expression with young children. I am really excited. I've had a sneak peek at the slide deck and it's an absolutely amazing webinar prepared for you all today. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much to everyone for taking the time out of their busy days to be here with us on this lovely sunny Thursday afternoon we are having here in Toronto. My favorite afternoon of the week. Love being here with all of you, and thank you so much to all of you for making the time for us. Okay, it is 2 o'clock on the dot. I hope everyone is settled in and ready for a very exciting webinar today. Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on strategies to discuss gender expression with young children. I'm very excited for our webinar with you today. Before we get started, for those of you who have joined our webinars before, you may have noticed that we have made the decision today to disable the chat in our webinar. We do understand that discussing gender expression in young children can be a sensitive topic, and our goal here at Hi Mama is to make sure that we are creating a safe and welcoming learning environment for all guests and all presenters. We respect all beliefs and philosophies. However, we do understand that this is an important conversation that many educators do need support with. So we appreciate your understanding for us deciding to close the chat for today and for joining us at our webinar. We do encourage any guests who have positive feedback to share with Samuel after the webinar to go ahead and respond to the show notes email that we will be sending out, and we will absolutely make sure that all feedback gets passed on to Samuel for his webinar today. Okay, and first things first, as always, lesson planning. We know that it is really hard to find the time you need to create those quality lesson plans, and we are here for you. Sign up for our Hi Mama activities. We have over 400 activities in there. You can filter by age, by theme, by domain. You can save your favorite activities based on your children's interests that week. And you can also sign up to have these activities sent directly to your inbox, whether you just need some inspiration for the week or you take the full activity. We are here to help you with that. You can go ahead and sign up for our Hi Mama activities. We will have it linked in the show notes email that you will receive early next week. As always, we do want to start off with a disclaimer that the information we are sharing today is not personalized, legal, or financial advice. The goal today is for us to get together with a community of educators and directors and parents to share tips, tricks, and techniques for you to bring into your centers, into your classrooms, and into your homes. So if you are looking at making any big changes at your center, we just want to make sure you are consulting the correct people, such as a legal or a financial advisor. We're now going to give a listen to our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word Takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we're now going to give a listen to our diversity and inclusion statement.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
And as always, a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. As always, we are recording the session. So if for any reason at all you do have to hop off, you will receive the slides and the recording in the show notes email early next week. We are also recording with the closed caption turned on. If you do require the closed caption, please be sure to hit that CC tab on your Zoom for today's session. In regards to certificates, as always, everyone who is here in the live webinar with us today, you will absolutely be receiving a certificate of participation. We will be getting those out to you by early next week. So do not worry if you don't see it today or even tomorrow. We promise you will get those by early next week. And lastly, if you're having any issues at all with your Zoom, we certainly hope you do not, but if you do, we just want to make sure you are consulting the right people who can support you with your Zoom. So just be sure you reach out to support.zoom.us. All right, and hi Mama. If you've never heard of us before, welcome. We're so excited you've made your way to us. Hi Mama is the #1 rated childcare management app. Our goal here at Hi Mama is to help make sure that you are providing the highest quality early learning experience for your children, your educators, and your families. And we support you in doing that through parent engagement, communication with your families, photo and video sharing, documentation, assessments, billing. It is all in Hi Mama for you, and we are here to help. If you are interested in learning more about how Hi Mama can support you at your center, again, keep an eye out for that show notes email, and you'll be able to go to our Hi Mama website so you can learn more about Hi Mama and have someone on our team show you around. And if you do join the Hi Mama family, maybe you already are part of our Hi Mama family, but I promise you, you will receive world-class support. I used to be on our customer service team as well, and I can absolutely promise you it is a fabulous group of humans on the other side of the phone or on the Zoom screen waiting to help you out and make sure you have a successful transition to Hi Mama at your center. In regards to our professional development community here at Hi Mama, if you didn't know, on top of our weekly podcasts, we also have, weekly webinars, we also have weekly podcasts that go out and weekly articles that are released to support you at your centers as well. And lastly, if you didn't know, Hi Mama is a B certified company. So what that means is as we work with our fabulous community of educators, we are also working to actively make a positive impact in the early childhood education space. And finally, your host. If you've never met me before, my name is Maddie. I am the host of our Hi Mama Helps webinar series. I'm also a customer advocacy specialist here at Hi Mama and one of the early childhood educators here on our team. As always, I have my lovely co-host Morgan, who is here joining us today. Morgan, what's going on with you today? Do you have a fun fact to share with us?
I have an extra long weekend today, so I am looking forward to spending lots of time with family once I log off from the computer today and not logging back on till Wednesday next week. So it'll be a nice break, and it'll just be so great to see some people I haven't seen for a little while.
Absolutely. So exciting, Morgan. Very well deserved. If anyone else on here also has a long weekend, I hope you take your well deserved time to relax as well. Finally, last, absolutely not least, our amazing guest today, Samuel. Samuel, welcome. Please feel free to turn your mic and your camera on. We're so excited to have you here today. Samuel, how's it going?
Great. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to see so many people already popping in, and I think we're going to have a really, really fun and great conversation. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. I agree. The number is still ticking up. Thank you so much to everyone being here for this important conversation today. Samuel, to make sure we maximize our full hour, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Stage is all yours.
Sounds good. I will share my screen now. Okay, so hi again, everyone. Thank you so much for signing up and joining this webinar today. I'm very, very excited to talk with you about this topic of gender expression in early childhood. This is a topic that is really, really close to my heart and kind of stems from one of the main reasons why I got into the field of working with children to begin with was to be the adult that I would have needed when I was a child. And just giving children that safe and supportive place to really discover who they are and how they fit into the world around them, and giving them a space that's free of judgment. So I'm very, very excited to speak about this with you today. I hope that you connect with what we're talking about. And of course, if you want to continue the conversation afterwards, I love that. I love to hear from people. So be sure to reach out to me if you have questions or just want to continue the conversation after today's webinar. Here's just a few takeaways from today that I'm hoping that y'all will be able to get when we're done with this. The number one thing is that gender expression is important. I know that sometimes this topic can be a little sensitive. It's something new for a lot of people, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that it's okay if you don't understand it. It's okay if it's confusing to you. The important thing is that you're here, you're wanting to learn more, and the fact that you're wanting to learn more says that you're really wanting to support the children that you work with or the children that you have. And that's the most important piece of all that we do. Number two, we need to be able to recognize and work through our own bias first. That's something that I think is really important in all the work that we do with children, but especially with topics like this that can be sensitive. I think it's important for us to take a moment to think about our feelings that stem from this idea and where those feelings come from and how we can work through those, and name those so that we don't bring those into our practice. Number three, we must connect families, teachers, and communities to this idea. We're all in this together when we're working to help raise a more kind generation than the one that we have right now. And so it's very, very important that while we're talking about these topics, while we're talking about the rights of children and the things that we know are best for them, it's really, really important that we connect with everybody that is in the children's lives, the families, the community around them, the teachers, the people that they're spending time with, so that we can all really be on the same page. Number four is don't be afraid. I kind of talked about this a little bit with number one, but honestly, like, it's okay if these things make you a little anxious or make you a little nervous to speak about or hear about. That's totally fine, because there's so much new information coming out. There's just a lot of new ideas that are coming out that maybe we're not used to hearing or not used to talking about. And that's fine, because again, if we're in this together, we're supporting each other, we're encouraging each other. It's the only thing that matters is that we're trying and that we're making an effort to make a positive change in the children's life. So don't be afraid. Number five, be honest. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about having conversations with children, but in general, it's always best to just have open and honest conversations with children. If you followed me at all or know of me before this webinar, you know that conversation is a huge piece of the work that I do. I've even put it on a t-shirt because I say it so much. You know, the idea of having open and honest conversations and communications with the children is very, very important in all aspects, and obviously including this as well. And the last takeaway for today that I'd like for you to remember when you leave is that always remembering that our jobs as teachers and as parents is to support all children, right? It's not for us to support the children who behave in the way that we feel like is appropriate, or who, show up in the way that we think is appropriate. Our job is to make sure that we're supporting all children, no matter what, and remembering that the time they have with us could very well be the only positive experience or positive time that they have in their day. And that's a really important thing to remember. Okay, so we're going to go on. I really hope that these slides work, because for some reason, every time I click on the slides on these things, it like messes up. So we're going to hope that this goes to the next. Oh, it did. Awesome. Okay. So first, we're going to talk about some important terminology, because like I said, there's lots of words coming out that maybe we haven't heard of before. There's lots of conversations coming out that maybe we haven't really talked about before. So it's really important for us to understand the correct words to use, so that when we're using them with the children are understanding and they're able to use them as well. So we're just going to take a little bit of time to talk about just a few terms that I think are important when we're talking specifically about this idea of gender expression with early education. There's lots more terms to know. If you'd like to know some more, you can reach out to me. I have a longer list, but these are just the 4 that I thought were really, really important for today. The first term is cisgender. So this is a term that you might hear a lot. It basically means a person who identifies with the gender and sex that they were assigned at birth from the doctor. So myself, being a cisgender man, I was assigned male when I was born, and I identify as a male. So cisgender would be a way that I could describe myself. Gender expression. So that's what we're talking about today, right? Someone's gender expression is the appearance, the external appearance, how they present themselves, usually through behavior or clothing or hairstyle or voice or numerous other things. And those things may or may not conform to what the socially defined behaviors and characteristics are for that gender or for that masculinity or femininity. It's really just all about somebody expressing on the outside how they feel on the inside. Gender identity is what your innermost concept of yourself is, as male, female, a blend of both or neither. There's lots of gender identities that someone can feel inside, how they perceive themselves, how they choose to describe themselves. And that obviously can be the same or different as what they were assigned at birth. And then the last term on here we have is non-binary. This is a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or a woman on that binary scale. They may identify as being both or in between or completely outside of the binary system at all. An important distinction to make is that while many people who are non-binary may also identify as transgender, not all non-binary people do or are. So it's very important to remember the distinctions between these words to make sure that we're putting the right language into the children as well. So I know that those are, kind of maybe new words for people and maybe might be a little uncomfortable, but it's okay to use and explain these terms and more terms to the children. I've always been of the mindset that it's very, very important for us to use real language with the children, use real terms with the children, because there is no reason not to. We want the children to be able to grow up and be kind and be accepting. And if we stop them from using these words or we don't introduce these words to them, it gives an automatic negative connotation to what these words mean. And it can also bleed into giving them a negative connotation to the people who use these terms or associate themselves with these terms. So it's really, really important to make sure that we're using appropriate language and appropriate terms for children when we're talking about gender expression, so that we can make sure that they're having a more expansive mindset of what our world is like, of what our community is like, and they can recognize the differences in people. I feel like a lot of times adults maybe feel like it's important for children to know, everyone is the same, everyone's human, everyone, we don't see color, we don't see these things, right? And we know by now that that isn't really the most positive way to teach children about the differences in our world. It's important for them to see the diversity and to see the differences in all sorts of people that live in our world, live in our community, work with each other. So it's really, really important for us to make sure that we're using, again, correct language and correct terms with the children. Again, when we ignore certain words or we tell children that certain words are bad or they're words that we don't say, we show them that there's something like shameful or embarrassing about it, and that can lead to self-confidence issues, especially if, like, for me, I guess personally, another reason why I got into this field and into this work is growing up, always hearing and being teased for, people calling me gay or people calling me, different words and different terminology, and me putting a negative connotation onto that word. It caused me a roller coaster ride of self-discovery when I realized that's who I was, and having to fight with myself thinking, well, ever since I was a child, this is what people said were bad, and now this is how I'm feeling, so I must be bad. And it can lead to a lot of struggle in discovering who you are and who the children are. And so I don't want them to go through that same struggle that I went through. And so it's important for me to make sure that they know that all of these things are okay, all of these things are valid, and all of these things are celebrated. So I had talked a little bit about the beginning about examining our bias. And so now I'd like to spend a little bit of time doing that. So I want you to just spend just a few minutes, quiet reflection with yourself, thinking about your feelings surrounding gender, gender expression, and gender identity. You can jot some words down if you want to, if that helps you or not. I just really want you to spend that time reflecting within yourself and being honest with yourself about, what are your feelings when this topic comes up? How do you feel about these things? How do you feel about children who express their gender in a way that is not, the socially acceptable way? How does that make you feel? And don't be embarrassed about the things that you feel. Don't be ashamed about your automatic reactions, because it's important for us to get to that point to self-reflect and think about where those feelings come from. So I want you to just take just a couple minutes in that quiet reflection, just to think about what these mean to you and what kind of feelings these come up to you. It's really, really important that we spend this time reflecting. And I think that self-reflection is a huge piece of the work that we do with children in general. It's always very, very important for us to self-reflect on who we are, the actions that we're taking, the words that we're saying, and where they're coming from. Because we don't want to bring any of those bias, any of that judgment into our work with children. So what we're using this time for is reflecting on what these words make us feel like, reflecting on where that comes from our life experiences, from our family experiences, whatever it may be. And we're working through that in our head to make sure that those feelings, if they are more negative or not as supportive, that we're working through that to make sure that we're not bringing that into our work with children. Because then we're putting something into their head that doesn't need to be there, right? And the world itself is already putting things into the children's heads about these ideas, about what's acceptable, about what's right, about what's wrong. And we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to let them know, again, that whoever they are, whoever they feel they are, whoever they say they are, is accepted, is valued, is celebrated, and it matters. They matter. So thank you for taking those couple minutes to really be honest with yourself and think about those. And we're going to move on. And I want you to continually think about the words that you thought about, the feelings that you had as we continue going forward today. Again, if we can't recognize our bias, our privilege, or our deeply rooted feelings, we can't expect to fully support all children. We just can't. It's not possible. If we can't recognize where we come from, what privilege we have, what biases we have, any of those things, there's no way that we're going to be able to support all the children that we come into contact with. And that should be the goal of all of us, right? So here's where we're getting down to it. What does gender expression look like in young children? Because I feel like a lot of times when I bring up this idea, people say like, oh my goodness, children are too young, right? Children are too young to know anything about this. They're too young to understand gender. They're too young to understand themselves, right? Which is completely untrue. Again, from my own personal experience, I knew when I was 4 or 5 years old that there was something about me that was different than the people that I saw around me, right? I knew that there was something different about me, and I didn't really understand fully what it meant or what it was going to be, but I knew that there was something there that I needed to explore a little bit more. But we weren't given that opportunity, right? Back in the day, we weren't given opportunities to really discover who we are freely, right? And so I wasn't given a space that was safe to figure out who I was and to know that that's okay. And so that's why we're here. We're here to give that to the children. We're here to give them something that we didn't have. So here, we know that children grow and learn and develop so much in their early years. But this is also a time where they are going to begin their journey of gender expression and identity, figuring out who they are, and figuring out how they connect to their community and the world around them. It's imperative for us to support them through this journey in a way that's not judgmental and that is safe, so that they know that they're safe when they're with us, and they know that we support them and we encourage them and we celebrate them and we're here for them. There are some ways here on the right hand side of the screen. There are some ways that you might see children exploring gender in your classroom or in your home. And this obviously is not all of the ways that this could happen, but these are just some of the ways that I feel like come up the most or are more easily noticeable for everyone to see. So obviously we know in the dramatic play, in our home living, in our kitchen area, whatever you may call it, we see children explore gender roles a lot in that area, right? They're playing mom and dad, they're playing husband and wife, they're discovering kind of where they fit, what roles they play, and they take things from their home, they take things from that they're seeing from the media, and they're playing these things out. And so sometimes we might see children who are exploring a gender role that is outside of the norm, right? Outside of what people would expect from them. So we might see this with, boys wearing the dresses or girls playing, as the man of the house, any of those things, right? And that can sometimes be a real big issue for teachers and for parents, right? I've had so many parents come to me and say that they don't want their son putting on the dress, they don't want their son putting on the heels, they don't want their daughter to do this and that and this and that. And that's where that connection piece with the families comes, right? That's where that connection piece with the other teachers comes, where we can use what we know and what we know is right and the knowledge that we have to share with them why this is important, why just because the son is playing this way doesn't mean he's going to be XYZ. We can give that information to the parents and really help them to understand, because then they'll go home and they'll have a more open and more kind and more supportive environment in their home as well. The children can also use art to express how they're feeling on the inside. Self-portraits is a great way to really get a sense for how the children feel about themselves. And art in itself is such a wonderful way to really spend that time within yourself and really get to know yourself, right? At least it is for me too, right? Music, songs, dancing, art, drama, all these things, it can really help you discover who you are. So children could be using that as well. Again, music, dance, puppets, they can use those to explore different roles and different interests. The puppets are this, can they marry each other here, can they do this, and they have those conversations with each other. A big way that children might be exploring this is by asking questions. And that goes back to one of the takeaways that we talked about being honest and having honest conversations with the children. So when they're asking questions of us, we want to make sure that we're honest with them, and we don't shy away from the question that they're asking just because they make us uncomfortable. The children will also observe us and use imitation to explore different body language. That's a big piece for me when I'm working with children, is that I want to make sure that the children know that every expression is okay, right? Again, when I was younger, I was always a little more effeminate, and I never had a male adult who was also effeminate to tell me that that's okay to move this way and talk this way and say these things and like these things, right? So it's important for us to be honest about who we are with children and show them that all different expressions are acceptable and are valued. Another big one that I noticed a lot is arguing with other children about what's for a boy or for a girl, right? And that's a huge personal pet peeve of mine. But it's a really big piece, because that is how the world works, right? The world works and has worked for such a long time in this binary system, right? And so the children are already getting into that. You go to the fast food place for the Happy Meal, and they ask you if you want the boy toy or the girl toy, right? That doesn't make any sense. Toys don't have genders, and they're not gender specific, and they're not for specific genders. So you might hear children arguing about that a lot, like, you can't do that, you're a girl, or you can't play with those, you're a boy. These different things that go back and forth. And again, that's another one of those places where we can have that organic conversation with the children. Why do you think that he can't play with that? It's not just for girls. These items and materials are for anybody that wants to play with them and anybody that wants to use them, and all of that is acceptable. So those are just a few ways that you might see gender expression showing up in your classroom or with your children at home. And again, a lot of these, you can use that idea of open and honest conversation. So see, even if you didn't know me before, you already can tell that this idea of conversation is such a huge part of my practice, right? Because all of these things can lead to that organic conversation where the children feel like what they think and what they're questioning and what they're wondering is okay. And they can talk about it with you, and you can share with them. And even if you don't understand, you can tell them you don't understand. Like, I really am confused just like you, but we're going to try this, or we're going to learn together. Don't be afraid of that, right? Don't be afraid of those conversations with children. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but I guarantee you that if you're having those organic conversations with children, you're going to get really beautiful conversation. You're going to get really beautiful connection with these children. And it's going to mean so much to them and to you. So here are some ways that you can support gender expression in young children. So we already know that we're examining our bias, and we're working through that to come to our practice in a supportive way, right? With no judgments. That's the most important thing. And actually, I do have a little reflection sheet that I use sometimes when we're talking about this. So if that's something that you would like to use in your practice, let me know, and I can send you as many copies as you want of it, and you can use that to really have those self-reflection questions. And even as you work through this idea of supporting gender expression more in your program or in your home, you can also use that reflection as you go through that and say, like, how did this go? How can I do this differently? Again, really, really diving deep into that self-reflection. You see right here, number one, open and honest conversations. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, it is the most important thing that you can do with children, is having open and honest conversations with them. Talk with them and allow them to have open and honest conversations with you. So often I feel like adults shut down children and their feelings and their wonderings and their ideas, and that is not okay. We need to make sure the children know that everything that they're thinking and saying and feeling and believing is valid. And so by allowing that two-way, open, honest conversation with them, we're really going to get there. Allow children to speak about their feelings. This is a big one in all areas of the work that we do, of parenting. Um, if a child is upset, let them come to you and tell you about that. If they're upset with you, let them tell you about that. That's okay. They can speak about how they feel. Because again, if we look back on our childhoods, probably, at least for me, and I'm sure a lot of you, we weren't allowed to speak up. We weren't allowed to speak up about our feelings because that was taken as disrespect. And so now, as an adult, it's very difficult for me sometimes to speak up for myself. And I don't want that for children. I want children to grow up and be adults who are comfortable advocating for themselves, advocating for their agency, advocating for their bodies, and their feelings and their thoughts. And so it starts right here, right? It starts here where we allow the children to have that time to speak about how they feel and to know that it's okay, and to know that we're here to listen and we're here to support and guide them and help them understand some of these feelings. But it's okay for them to speak up. You can also support gender expression by talking about all types of people openly. This is something that I notice a lot when I go to different programs is people will have, the pack of diversity posters that you can get from, numerous early childhood shops. But the posters are just in the classroom hanging up and there's never any conversation around them. They're dusty or they're in a place where no one's looking at them. And so it doesn't really do any good, right? It doesn't do any good unless we're bringing attention to these things, unless we're placing diverse books into the library and making an effort to read them, unless we're supporting families and bringing in different types of people into our classrooms, bringing in different types of families into our classrooms, showing pictures of different types of families, and having these ongoing conversations about all the different types of people in our world. Because the children are going to move on from us and they're going to go out into the world and they're going to see a whole lot of different people. And I think that it's really important for us to spend as much time as we can making sure that we're openly talking about all of these different differences between people, right? And not just kind of doing it for show, not just having some books to say we have some books, but we don't ever actually read them, right? It's not enough to just have the materials or have the pictures. You have to actually actively use them, right? You can also support this by allowing children to play as they wish, right? That's a huge part of my work too. Play is so important, and a lot of us already know that. But allowing children that space to have freedom in their play, play with what they want, how they want, when they want, because that's how children really learn, right? And we want to make sure that we're giving them the time and the space to have that play and to let the play go. We have, as adults and early educators, we have a tendency to want to interrupt children's play, so that we can talk with them about it, so that we can, ask questions, whatever it may be, right? And all of that is from a good place, right? We're all doing it with good intentions, but we shouldn't be interrupting the children's play unless we're invited into it. So when we see children playing and we see children expressing different genders or discovering other genders or exploring other roles, we want to make sure that we're letting them play as they will and just letting it happen and letting those organic conversations happen with each other. Another important way to support children is to trust and believe them. So this is something that is very, very important. When a child tells you something, we need to make sure that we're trusting them and that we're believing them. When a child tells you who they are, we need to make sure that we're believing them and we're valuing that, right? I've worked in classrooms with young children who are transgender, and it is very important for their self-worth and the way that they see themselves to be valued as the person that they say that they are. And that can be a really, really uncomfortable thing for a lot of people, but I mean, if you're working in this field, there really is no other choice, right? If you chose to work into this field or you chose to have children, um, there's no real other option but to support them and but to trust them and believe them and celebrate who they are. And so I think that that's really, really, really important, and really good for the children to see and hear. Be who you are. This was a huge one for me. Um, so long, so much time of my life I spent hiding who I was, pretending that I was something that I wasn't, because I was ashamed and embarrassed, right? But working with children and opening this up to them really can be beautiful and moving. And so for me, I'm who I am with the children. They know all about my husband. They see him all the time. We have conversations about him. They see me dressed how I dress. They see me move how I move. They see me speak how I speak. And it's wonderful for them to see it because they know that, wow, somebody that I look up to as my teacher is doing these things that maybe I kind of feel like I want to be doing, or is moving and speaking in a way that I do. And it must be okay because he's doing it, right? And that's what we want to show the children, because that isn't something that we had growing up, right? So be who you are, and be honest with the children about your life, and don't be ashamed or nervous to speak about it. Um, they deserve to know who you are. They deserve to know the real you. And it's really going to be very, very helpful for them as they continue to grow and continue to explore and discover who they are. Again, don't be afraid, right? We talked about that a few times already. We don't want to be afraid of making these changes and bringing these ideas to the children, because taking a job working with young children, having children yourself, all of these things, we're taking on the role of an advocate, right? We are here to advocate for children who cannot advocate for themselves. We're here to advocate for the things that we know are true and right for the children. And so in order to do that, we just have to be brave. We cannot be afraid. Um, it's really, really important to remember the importance of your role in these children's lives. It's important for you to remember the honor that you have by being in these children's lives and what that brings with it. So don't be afraid. And the last thing you can do, honestly, is just be a safe space for all children. If all of these things make you nervous, if all of these things make you really anxious, the bottom line is just create a supportive space for every child in your program, every child in your home. Create a safe space for them where they feel safe, where they feel understood, where they feel valued, where they feel loved. That's really all you have to do to start this out. If you are seeing children in your room that are exploring gender, if you're seeing children that you know who are exploring their gender, um, just believe them, just allow them to explore, allow them to discover who they are. A lot of times I feel like adults will see children exploring different gender roles and think, well, great, now my kid's going to be gay, right? That was told to me by so many parents. Even just having the children in my classroom, they didn't like that because they were afraid that it was somehow going to rub off on them, right? But it's really important for us to understand that this is just a natural development for children. They don't understand. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to understand who they are on the inside and how they connect to the world around them. And by us creating a safe space for them, by us allowing them to speak openly, by us allowing them to ask questions, by us allowing them to play freely and discover who they are, we are really giving them some very, very important foundational steps for their journey of self-discovery. And if we do all these things, if we support children in these ways, if we teach them that they have power in their words, that they have power in who they are, if we teach them that they can advocate and speak up for themselves, if we teach them that they're valid, we show them that they're valued and that they matter, we are going to create a generation of human beings that we have not seen before, a generation of people who are loving and kind and supportive and connected to each other, and know that that connection is important, not only to yourself, but to others. So honestly, if you take anything away from what we've talked about today, take away this idea of, take with you this idea of being a safe space for all children. It's really as simple as that. There's all these other things we've talked about. There's a ton of other things that you can do. But honestly, bottom line is just create a space where the children can feel supported and loved. Oh, look at that. We're at the end. Honestly, though, everybody, like, I know that a lot of this might have rubbed you the wrong way or made you feel a little bit anxious or uncomfortable. Please remember that that is okay. You're making the steps to try. You're making the steps because you want to support children. You're making the steps because you want to support families. And that is the most important thing. And the work that you're doing is beautiful and is important and is valid and valued. And I see it. And I know that everybody here sees it. So honestly, I just really, really, really want to say thank you to everyone that's here, that signed up to watch this, that signed up to watch it later. You're taking the very first steps in making real, wonderful change for these children and their families. And they are going to grow up and be adults one day, and they are going to feel confident and safe in who they are. And it's going to be because of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Samuel, thank you so, so much. That was so empowering, so beautiful. And thank you for sharing your own personal experiences as well. We very much appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And Samuel, I'll give you a moment, take a sip of water, take a deep breath. I am going to go ahead and throw out our questions of the day to our audience, and then we'll jump into our Q&A. So everybody, we have gone ahead and launched our questions of the day. So today what we want to hear from you is, how do you communicate with families about sensitive topics at your center? Are you currently doing most of these face-to-face, through the phone? Do you use perhaps a social platform like Facebook or Instagram? And if you're interested in learning about how Hi Mama can support you in making sure that these conversations are safe and secure, they're not going through public platforms, you are keeping families and children's information completely secure, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to show you how we can support you with engaging in these conversations. Sometimes these types of conversations can be challenging enough with families. So we would love to support you in making sure they are as safe and secure as they possibly can be. Go ahead, take a minute to fill out the poll there. Then we'll get into some questions with Samuel. And I'm just going to take a peek at some of the questions that came through for us today. Samuel, I have a couple. I have two big ones and then two smaller, more day-to-day ones that I'm sure some educators would appreciate. So why don't we start off with some of those bigger ones?
Yes.
A big question that I was thinking about throughout this. So I used to work in the classroom as well as an educator. And I know a big issue that a lot of educators face is just not always being on the same page as the families, as well as their colleagues, though, right in the classroom. So what would you say to an educator who is really working to sit with this discomfort and embrace these conversations with children in their classroom, but their colleague is just not on the same page? Or to give an example, to make this question more clear, it's really common, right, for educators to say, this is your girlfriend, this is your boyfriend, right? So how would you encourage an educator to maybe start that conversation with a fellow educator?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something that I've dealt with too, is like how it's really hard to kind of work together when you have this idea and the person you're working with doesn't really believe the same thing. First, I would say begin by saying this idea of, look at oh, that's his girlfriend, that's her boyfriend type of a thing is something that I think in general that we really need to stop saying. We need to really stop this sexualization of children, because number one, it is for no purpose, and we're also showing the children that having a partner or having a boyfriend or girlfriend is something that is super important in life. We don't want children to feel like that's how they can, um, that's what they need to like feel complete or feel who they are. So first of all, I would definitely have the conversation about that. And then again, we talked about not being afraid, and that's what part of this is. As an educator, we're advocates for children, and so when we see things that we don't believe are right for children, or we see people thinking things or saying things that we don't believe are right for children, it's our duty and our job to speak up about it and say something about it. So honestly, take the things that you hear, take the things that you've heard, and broach those topics with the people, because if you're not going to do it and you're not going to help possibly change this person's mindset or help them to open their mind a little bit more, then nobody's going to, and then they're going to continue on this road of not really supporting all children. So it can be very difficult, it can be very uncomfortable, but that's what we choose when we take a job in this field, when we decide to work with children, is that we're standing up for them. And so honestly, again, it's all about those conversations. So have a conversation with your co-teacher, with your coworker, with the families. Ask them, why do they feel this way? Ask them where those feelings come from. I had that exact experience with a parent who didn't want his daughter in my classroom because I was gay. I could have easily just been like, I don't care, let her go out, I don't want to deal with the dad. But I knew that her being with me was going to be important because she needed to have a space where she knew that everything was okay. And if that was the message she was getting from home, I wanted to make sure I was putting another message in. And so I had a conversation with the dad. I asked him where these feelings came from. He spoke openly with me. And by the end of the year, he wasn't super comfortable, but he was more comfortable than he was at the beginning. And that's all we can do, right? So sometimes the conversations are going to be hard, but that's part of what we do and part of advocating for children.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Samuel. A couple other questions that came through. I'll just pull them up here. So in terms of labeling things in the classroom, even for, crafts that they're doing or playing outside, such as building a snowman or talking about the mailman or a fireman, what are your thoughts on replacing that terminology and saying person? Does that have an impact in the classroom?
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's something that's super difficult, even for me. And this is what I tell people all the time. It's like, sometimes you might listen to a training or listen to a webinar and you might think like, oh God, I'm never going to get to the position that this person is in, because their classroom is probably super supportive and they use all the right terms and all this stuff. But everyone is a work in progress, everybody is having to really do this unlearning of the language and the words that we're used to using. So yeah, that's something that I think is really important, making sure that we're watching the gendered language that we use. A big one that is really difficult for me is the term "you guys." That's one that I struggle with constantly, trying to find a different word for that. Things like, if you're a boy, line up and wash your hands first, those types of things. We want to really like stay away from terminology like that. When we're talking about, the mailman, if the mailman presents as a male, then yes, we can call them that. If we're talking about mail carriers in general, we can use the actual term of mail carrier, firefighter, police officer, all of those. But yeah, it's the language is so important, because we think back onto our childhoods. It's so hard for us to unlearn these things because that language is so embedded and important from childhood. And so it's important for us to make sure that we're shifting this language. We're really thinking about what the words mean, where they came from, what they imply, and words that we can substitute to just create a more supportive environment for everybody.
Absolutely. And that's a great call out. I definitely catch myself saying you guys all the
Yes,
time. The more you
period.
say it to your friends or family, then it enters the classroom with you. So it's definitely something to work on for myself. So
Yeah, totally.
okay, and one last question for you here. So for the youngest children, infants, toddlers, I guess preschool as well.
Yeah.
Do you typically recommend that you wait for these conversations to happen more naturally in the conversation? Or is it age appropriate to bring in all the terminology in terms of the LGBTQ plus community? Do you sit down and kind of bring those in as a circle time conversation, or is it a bit more natural in the classroom?
So, I mean, I honestly think it could be both. It really just depends on the children that you have and what you know about them, right? So when we're working with children, we know who they are as people. We know, what they're thinking, what they're wondering about, and what they can really like take in. So sometimes it might be appropriate to sit down and have like a conversation about certain things. And a lot of times the conversation is just going to happen organically, and it doesn't have to be something where we're like, okay, class, we're going to learn about all these words today. It's also more so about just using the words in conversation, using the words naturally, um, speaking about these things naturally with the children. When you notice things, speaking about them, when you notice children talking about certain things, especially in this idea of what's for boys, what's for girls, what's a boy, what's a girl, those types of things, those are great places to really have that organic conversation with them. And I think that organic conversation is the best way to help teach children anything, really, because it's happening in the moment. It's happening because they're either interested or questioning it. And so they're really it's gonna stick with them a lot more. So again, just know your children and go with what your gut is telling you. If you're like, this feels like a moment that I could talk about this with them, then do it, right? And if you're uncomfortable with the conversation, tell them you're uncomfortable. Like, I really want to talk to all of you about this. I almost said you guys, see? uh I want to talk to all of you about this, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I don't really know how to say it, but I think it's important. Having that honesty with the children is important, not only because the conversation will be more real, but also because it's showing children that it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to wonder. It's okay to question. It's okay to make a mistake. All of those things. So honestly, it really just comes down to kind of how your children are. And even with the youngest children, those infants and those toddlers, like, the language that we use, again, is super, super important. um, because then they're already developing with that correct and supportive language.
Absolutely. And as you were saying all that, Samuel, it had me thinking that, if we didn't engage in this organic conversation, especially with infants and toddlers, and it just became this sit down formal learning as we get older, do we risk kind of othering that as this
Yeah.
more serious topic and everything else is just normal, as much as I don't want to say that word, but
Right. Okay.
yeah. Do you see what I'm saying there? Like, do we risk it
Yeah,
becoming a bit
definitely.
more of like, yeah,
I mean, I definitely think that we want to make sure that these ideas are like more normalized. I hate that word, but it's, we want to make sure that it's more in the conversation, because we don't want it to become something where the children are like, oh, we don't ever talk about this, so it
yeah,
must be weird or different or bad. We want to make sure that the conversations that we're having are happening organically, and that's from us listening, and that's from us observing and seeing what the children are talking about and doing. And then also just bringing ourselves into it as well, and bringing the families into it as well. If there's families that we know that are same sex, or if there's families that we know that are have a parent who's transgender or whatever, bringing those things into the classroom as well, and really just making it more real and more just every day. This is just what it is, because that's how children are. When I first meet new children and I tell them about my husband, they say, oh, you have a husband? And I say, yeah, I do, here he is. And they say, oh, okay, cool. And then they just start talking about it, right? Because they don't have that idea in them yet. And so we really want to make sure that we keep that with them and keep that idea of like, this just what it is, and everything is, good.
Absolutely. And I know I said previously that was my last question, but one more really quick question. And this is just someone's curious if you have recommendations to continue their professional development in having conversations around gender expression and sexuality with children in the classroom. Do you have any other resources that educators can reach out to?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a really great book that I read. I'll have to post it or something. I can't remember the exact name. It's literally called something almost just like this, just like supporting gender expression in the classroom or something. And then also, I also do have a lot of other resources myself that I've created to really help around this topic.
Awesome.
Different trainings, different kind of like reflection worksheets, again, like I said, lots of different resources that people can find through my page and through the things that I offer as well.
Amazing. So for everybody on here who has any further questions or wants to continue their learning or conversation, in the show notes email you will receive, we are linking how you can stay in contact with Samuel and all the work that he is doing. Okay, well, Samuel, thank you. Oh, wrong slide. Thank you so much for being here with us today, for sharing your knowledge, for your honesty in this conversation, and for all the work you're doing for children and the compassion you have for all the children you care for. It is very much appreciated. So thank you so much for your time, Samuel, and for being here with us.
Of course, thank all of you so much, and thanks everyone for watching, and I hope to connect more with you after today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Samuel. Take care.
You too.
And before we wrap up, everybody, just a reminder, if you're not in contact with us yet, you absolutely should be. We have an amazing Circle Time group on Facebook that you can join. There's a lot of activities and insights being shared from educators in there. If you are looking to expand your network and community as well, you can follow us at Hi Mama App on Instagram. What's next? So as a reminder, the show notes email will be going out early next week with the slides and the recording, and you will also be receiving your certificate of participation by early next week. Do not worry if you don't see it today or tomorrow. You will absolutely see it by early next week. And lastly, next week, same time, same place, Thursday, April 21st at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we are talking about the power of emotional intelligence in the early childhood classroom. I'm so excited for this webinar. I hope to see all of you there next week. Otherwise, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous rest of your day and fabulous weekend ahead. Thanks so much, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.